Call to order the July 28th meeting of the Shelby Township Planning Commission. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Dallo.
Here.
Ms. DeSico. Ms. Casali. Here. Mr. Bernardi.
Here.
Mr. Wexmonski.
Here.
Mr. Rapone. Absent. Mr. Vire.
Here.
Chairman Moffett, we have a quorum.
Thank you. First order of business is the approval of the agenda. If there are no corrections or additions, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Dallo, support by DeSico. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item is approval of the minutes from the July 14th regular meeting. If there are no corrections, additions, subtractions, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Support by Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, this evening we have three items, all public hearings. The first two under our site plan. First two regarding subdivisions that are proposed. First, number 14-22, Daniel Bell, regarding a Brampton Court condominium project. Madam Secretary, would you read the public notice?
Charter Township of Shelby, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission for the Charter Township of Shelby, Macomb County, Michigan, has received a request for approval of a single-family condominium project. Applicant, Daniel Paul Bell, 296 Beach Drive, Oakland, Michigan, 48363. Proposed use, Brampton Court condominium, 12 single-family units. Location, west side of Shaner Road, south of 24 Mile Road. 52333 and 52205 Shaner Road, site plan number 14-22. Sidwell number 23-07-14-200-014 and 23-07-14-200-016. Legal description is as follows. The Planning Commission will meet on Monday, July 28, 2014, at 7 p.m. in the Shelby Municipal Building, 52700 Van Dyke, Shelby Township, Michigan, 586-726-7243, for the purpose of holding a public hearing on the site condominium application. The application for the site condominiums may be examined at the Planning and Zoning Department in the municipal building Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Written comments may be submitted to the Planning Commission at the above address prior to the hearing. Oral comments will be heard during the public hearing. This notice is provided pursuant to the requirements of Michigan Public Act 110 of 2006 as amended. Shelby Township Planning Commission, Jerome Moffett, Chair. Raquel Moore, Secretary. Publication date was July 9th, 2014 in the CNG newspaper. There were 80 property owners and 2 applicants notified on July 11th, 2014.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kirk, did the publication meet all legal requirements?
Yes, it did.
Okay, great. Ms. Moore, did we receive any correspondence regarding this request?
No, we did not.
Okay.
Oh, isn't it all for the same year? Is it just tonight?
Just came in.
Oh, I apologize. This just came in this evening from a Jason Tenorio. He's located in Birchfield. He's a homeowner that's adjacent to this property, and he's voicing his concerns relative to this development. The reduction of property values. He's basically opposed to it.
Okay. Thank you. Format for the public hearing will be as follows. The petitioner or the representative will give a presentation stating the reasons for the request. Commissioners may then ask questions of the petitioner. I'll open the floor for the public for any comments or questions you may have. And then finally, the petitioner will come back up for concluding remarks. At this point, I see the petitioner's representative is here. If you could state your request and the reasons for it.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I'm Pete Snyder from Urban Land Consultants, 8800 23 Mile Road here in Shelby, representing the applicant. The parcel is about 7.5 acres. It's located on the west side of Shaner, south of 24. It's a bit of an infill piece. Everything around it has been developed as R1B. And this is also zoned R1B and is proposed to be developed as R1B. We're not, all of the units meet the requirements. We don't need any variances of any sort. It's a pretty straightforward development, and certainly I'm available for any questions. To
the commissioners, any questions? Seeing none, This is the only public hearing the Planning Commission will hold on this subdivision approval request. All remarks will be entered into the record for Township Board evaluation. We are a recommending body, and the Township Board will evaluate our recommendation, which is a legislative body. The Township Board will make the final decision on this subdivision application. This time, I'll open it up to the public if anyone wishes to come with a comment or question. Okay, actually, I need you to come up to the microphone and then sign in name and address, and then state your name and address for the record.
Carol, 13403 Partridge Run, Shelby.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me just a minute. Nobody can hear that in the back here. Is anything they can do with the microphone?
Let's try this one here. Ma'am, would you come up and, or Pete, would you? You just imagine you're on a talk show and, you know, you're,
Where's James?
yeah.
Judith Harrell, 13403 Partridge Run, Shelby Township. We have a few questions. 12 units going in right behind us. You're going to remove all the trees?
So how this is going to work is you'll ask the questions here,
Oh.
and then everyone can ask whatever questions, and then we'll bring the petitioner up to respond to the questions.
Oh, he writes it down and answers then, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. And how much are they selling for each? Is it going to bring the value of our properties down? And you have a pond of mosquito infestation planned right by people's pools and so forth. Why can you not put drains in like everybody else? Those are our biggest concerns, and there is maybe, because there's been falcon hanging around our backyard, actually a couple of them, and they may be endangered. I have contacted the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to find out, because they are nesting back there.
Okay. Does anyone else wish to comment on this application? Okay, sir. No, you need to come.
Questions first and then.
Come up to the microphone if you have something you want to ask.
Microphone works? All right. Yeah, my name's Greg Colby. I'm her boyfriend. I own the house there behind the fifth property over from Shaner.
Okay.
And yeah, I was a little dismayed to find out that I'm not sure what the retention pond is. Is that what's usually out by the road? I'm not a builder. I work in a.
Okay. We'll ask the petitioner about the placement of the retention pond.
We butt up right against there. We're right across from where the side street's going to come down. So we're going to have headlights coming into our Palladium window, and that's going to be like the backdrop for my hand-carved marble gazebo. I mean, I got a lot of money invested in my backyard, so I had to show up here and say something, man. Find out what it's going to look like. I mean, I wish the builder who built our house would have left a tree line there, But now it seems like everybody that builds here, I mean, the Shelby Township sign has a tree on it, man. Isn't there something, these 100-year-old trees are going to all be knocked down? I mean, that's what I'm here to find out anyways.
All right.
Right?
Someone back here. Okay.
Maurice Staton, 13508 Eagle Nest Trail. And I wasn't sure where the falcons were nesting, but irony is I have the photo of them perched on my rooftop. And I was concerned. I've only been there for a couple of years, brand new home, pleased to be there. And in the spirit of continuous improvement, it's not that I'm opposed. Obviously, I can't because they just put my house up on Eagle Nest Trail. So building's not always bad, but looking at the environment, I want that to be considered because, again, I have this photo, and you all are welcome to see it, of the falcon perched on my rooftop. And this was just taken a week ago as we were walking through the subdivision. My daughter and I came back and said, hey, what's that on the roof? So I actually took a photo of it. I'm hoping, and again, I'm not sure about the square footage. I'm not sure what you're selling for. Unfortunately, I was not able to pull up the site, but I certainly want to make sure that there's nothing there that's going to decrease the value. And I certainly won't compare what's going on there, but what happened just north of 23 Mile Road, but on the east side of the street where it was permitted. And if I'm guessing there are probably 20 units there, and that's just not why I invested over on Eagle Nest Trail to have that type of development behind my property, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
And you're all welcome to see it if you'd like. It's there.
A big.
I don't think anybody would begrudge the gentleman for making an investment and trying to improve and to make an income and create wonderful homes for people to live in. But I will tell you that I live not adjacent to this, but across the street, and I've been there for 7 years now, and we've added those 20 condominiums. Now we're going to add this. Has the planning department ever done a check at how much traffic runs down Shaner Road in the mornings? Because I'm going to tell you something, it is impossible to make a left turn from Woodlands of Shelby onto Shaner to head north in the morning. It doesn't happen. You can turn right maybe if you wait long enough, but that road is getting inundated with traffic, and we are now going to add 12 more beautiful homes, which are going to bring in a lot of people that are going to come onto a thoroughfare that I don't think Shelby Township is prepared to expand or to deal with the traffic. Now, I know that there has been an accident in front of my sub with a woman that has a hand-driven car. She has MS. She was sitting trying to make a left, and what happens is, because the way that it's designed, and I don't know if you guys have been down that way, but it's one of these things where you can kind of loop around somebody making a left, and that's great, cars, but people ride right on each other's tail, and if you're not paying complete attention, you hit into the back of somebody. Now, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add another left turn for 12 homes of people that are going to now have to make that left turn to get in. They're also going to need to get out of that subdivision. There's no additional way in or out of this. That's it. That's all that you have. We need to really take a look at the big picture of what we're doing here. Please forgive me. I'm not trying to begrudge your ability, but we're kind of growing too big, and I think that we need to take maybe a step back and assess what we got here traffic-wise before we just say, oh yeah, sure, go ahead, because it's going to get to the point where, how do you get to work? Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Sign in after in the interest of time. John Bates, 52250 Chickadee. I will be, my backyard will be looking into the new sub. So a couple comments. One, I think all of us are strongly opposed to this development, so I want that on the record. Second, I'm very curious, and a couple other folks have already stated their curiosity into how many trees will be left. I'd also like to know if a tree permit has been pulled or filed for and what is entailed in that. Very curious about the retention pond. I'm not a builder, so I don't know how to read the plans. So I'd like a little bit more explanation there. Are there going to be fences? How many square feet are these homes going to be? And anything else, Mrs. Bates, that I should know? No, I think we're good. The boss said that we're good. So just more explanation. We're all concerned. The other thing the gentleman brought up, that Shelby Township has a tree in its logo. The name of our sub is Woodlands of Shelby. We invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in this investment, and it is an investment. And I look at it, I look at this lot, what's going to happen, and I just see our property values going down. And that's a big concern. We've invested, like the other gentleman's invested a lot of money into his backyard, so have we. We've invested too much to now enjoy our pool and our patio to look out in the sub. Look into somebody else's backyard. It's one of the main reasons I think everybody moved into Woodlands of Shelby, is because it is woodlands.
Let me ask you a question, if I could. What would you see? What would you deem appropriate to build there?
Leave it the way it is. You're asking. It's a fair question.
Well, okay, but I don't know that that's a reasonable answer, though.
No, well, it is,
All right.
because that's what you do not have to
All right,
approve this. But, I mean, because honestly, the big concern there's 5 houses in our Chickadee Street. It's a small street, and we're one of the 5 that are potentially looking to move outside of Shelby if this gets approved the way it is. So, we're willing to make some sacrifice. Obviously, we want a lot of woods kept, but, we are looking in other townships, and I think, we're not going to be alone. So that's the main reason we moved to Shelby, and this sub particularly, is because of the woods. And if we can come to some compromise, we're for it. Obviously, like Phil said, we're all for growth, but we need to cut it down a little bit. So I'll sign in now. And
Okay, I think there's a gentleman back here. Oh.
Damiano Evola, 52228 Chickadee. John's my neighbor. I'm the lucky guy who gets the luck of the draw, who has a retention pond in his yard. And John made some valid points. You also have valid points. I guess you're going to put something there. But mind you, number one, he says he has 7.5 acres. Well, it wasn't 7.5 acres. They made it 7.5 acres. Okay, we all backed up to individual lots at the time. Those individual lots happen to be wooded. We're asking for a buffer, 15, 20 feet. Leave something, leave vegetation, whatever, that would, make it good for them and for us. They can sell them as wooded lots, whatever the case is. It would be advantageous for them. And we get a little buffer from seeing our neighbors eating in their kitchen. Property values, big concern. Everybody took the hit 4 or 5 years ago, and now we're just starting to see things develop and come back. I am a builder. I took a great hit, lost millions of dollars. But now I'm standing in front of you saying, whoa, let them do what they have to. But you have to take into consideration what's going on with the people and why we live there. We spent extra thousands of dollars to back up to these woods, and now they're going to be eaten up. So that's all we're asking for. If they can do something with that retention pond, I understand it has to be dug out, whatever the case is. They're calling for a fence and a few shrubs, whatever the case is. I say let's see a plan on the retention pond. If we can leave a buffer since we have a tree ordinance that you only take down trees within 10 feet of the building site, that's fine. If you can leave a buffer along the back, since I don't believe, is there sanitary going in the back or a storm along the back of the line?
I can ask him.
Can I ask that?
We'll ask him when he comes back up.
So if that doesn't have to be dug up, that'll be great. So, between the wildlife and the woods and whatever have you, and to try to maintain our property values, and hopefully they're building something that will be similar to what we have and in that price category, because the way the real estate market works is, if Joe Blow sells his house for $300, just 100 feet away, that makes mine worth a lot less. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Doug Goad. I'm at 13477 Partridge Run, which is, I think, the third site in from the east. And what surprises me about the entire plan, the entire layout, is not a single one of the trees is marked that's on that property. When we purchased our property back about 5-6 years ago, just like everyone else that spoke tonight, you know, we moved there because of the beauty of the area and the value of the homes and everything else. I think we are all looking for some kind of really strong buffer between us and this new development. If we don't see the development back there, if we don't have the lights from the other homes and the cars and everything else flashing into our backyards, it's probably not going to be a big deal. But the way this is laid out right now, it looks like they're just going to knock everything down. Directly behind my home, we put a very nice pool and deck and all that behind it. There's one of the biggest pine trees in all of Shelby. It towers over everything. That's right in the drainage spot. It looks like it's going to get taken down. The other thing that is interesting about the property, one of the pieces of property, is the woman that owned the property was actually a botany biologist, I think. She planted a lot of different trees in that property that are unique. And she walked us through it at one point in time and talked to her about, you know, are you ever going to sell the property? Nope, not going to sell the property. One of the individuals made the comment that this wasn't 7 acres. It wasn't. It was, I think, 2 homes or 3 homes. So we all kind of expected it was going to stay couple of homes. Somebody's going to come along, purchase the property, put a home in the front end of it. The back end of it is going to stay relatively untouched. Or if you put one home in there, you got plenty of trees around it. Nobody's ever going to know. Nobody's ever going to be bothered. So, excuse me. I think the biggest issue right now is that there's nothing in the plan, nothing identified relative to a green zone, keeping our property values where they're at. Because if it gets knocked down and just becomes flattened like what they did over at the corner of 24 and Shaner, we're just going to be looking right into the back of condos. And that's not what we bought here. That's not why we moved here, and that's not why we live here. So we really like a much more detailed plan. What I'd request is, before anything is approved, that every single one of the major trees that's on the property is identified on the plan. So we can see where they are before they come in and start knocking them down. Based on that, I don't know that the layout of the homes themselves is going to be appropriate. Where number 8 is up there, I believe there's a couple of beautiful, gorgeous, huge oaks. It's sitting right on top of them. So I don't think anybody's walked the property. I think they looked at it from a piece of paper, aerial view. I can plot down all these different condominiums. What's in the way is going to go away. We're asking that not be the case. Take the property, evaluate it very carefully, save the property's value, which will save all the other property values around it, mark it very carefully, and then build around the beauty of the area. Appreciate your time.
Does anyone else wish to comment on this?
I'm actually Mary Jo Tenorio. I'm Jason Tenorio's wife who made the request, or who wrote in. He could not be here today, so he's asked me to come here, 52294 Chickadee. Again, we are adjacent.
Could I ask you just to pull that mic down a little? There you go.
Vertically challenged, sorry. My lovely neighbors. So he's not opposed to the development. Of course, we would love to keep it the way it is. We are just opposed to knocking all those wonderful trees. That is what drew us to the area, and that's what we'd like to see stay, is to have those trees. You know, we talked about some of the oak trees, some of the way that the aerial that gentleman was talking about looking at it as a paper perspective and not actually walking the land, one of the questions is there an opportunity, instead of maybe 12 houses, to decrease it so that we could save some of that land? Another one of our concerns, so that was the first one. Another one of our concerns is the property value, which we've all talked about. If our property value goes down, you bet my husband's going to be the first one in line to come, hey, our taxes, we need decrease in our taxes and blah, 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 blah. So everything, it's kind of, so we're very concerned of what type of homes, how large, what will they be going for, square footage, that kind of stuff. I'm just reading his real quick. Who is the builder? Is it Lombardo Homes is building the homes? What style homes? Again, like some of the other people have talked about, we're very concerned about our property value. And we also did the same as the other gentleman. We talked with the people who previously owned the land and asked, are you going to sell this? What's going to happen to this? Oh, no, we're not going to sell. We're not going to sell. And I know things change all the time. And that's understandable, but we purchased for that reason. And so we're just very concerned about the property value, what type of homes, if we can leave some trees. Can we decrease it from 12 to 10 to 8 to 6 to whatever? Is there any opportunity in doing that? The traffic is horrible. I drive my children to school, and it takes at least 15 to 20 minutes, and I'm deathly afraid every time I have to make a left-hand turn. Sometimes I'll make a right-hand turn and go all the way on Van Dyke and come all the way back, and my children go to Duncan Elementary. So the traffic is ridiculous, and I don't know if there's, in future plans, widening roads or different timed lights or whatnot, but that is a huge concern as well. Adding more people, it's just going to bring more traffic. That's it. Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else?
I'm at 13346 Eagle Nest Trail.
Why don't you do that one more time, because we didn't get you in the microphone. Yeah.
Julia Putrich. I'm at 13346 Eagle Nest Trail. I'm the lot in the upper northwest corner behind the proposed 5 lot in the upper corner. So I've got, I guess, similar concerns, because right now I stare at a woods and, to have it all cleared out and just be staring at grass. When I moved in, I planted a bunch of trees to even try to increase that wooded feel, and so it just appears like all that's disappearing. But I guess, he's coming forward because he's trying to rezone, and so
He's not rezoning.
He's not rezoning?
Not rezoning. This is zoned R1B. What he's proposing is R1B, just like your homes.
So even though it's condos, it's the
site condos,
the zoning, so he cannot change. I guess that was the other concern, is can he change the density from 12 to even higher, because that wasn't clear to me. Okay, so then I guess, all the homes around the area are around 4,200 square feet. So it would be nice to know that the proposed square footage and layout of these homes are consistent. So, we've got a smooth flow in the, the planning from one subdivision to the next. There's some consistency there. And then traffic is also an issue. Right now, Shelby Junior High is both Middle River, Birchfield, and Royal Forest across the street. And so, the bus goes in one side, picks up kids, and then goes to the other side of Shaner and picks up kids. So there's a lot of kids that are friends and subs across from Shaner. So you've got kids wanting to visit their friends across Shaner, and as the traffic continues to grow and grow, you've got kids with bikes trying to go from this side of Shaner to the other. So it's just from a hazard to kids trying to meet and play with your friends. They're crossing Shaner. So there's a worry, I guess, on my part, as the traffic builds on Shaner. That's going to get more and more dangerous over time for kids that want to visit their friends, because of the way the Shelby Junior High is zoned. You've got them on both sides of Shaner. So, and then I guess finally, if we could talk some more about, the builder, about any kind of buffer on the whole tree issue.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going twice. Okay. Mr. Nguyen, your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a couple of comments. One is the building setback note should include the requirement that 24 feet is required between units. A note side entry garages are required. 2 street trees are required for each lot. And I would note that there is a requirement for a tree, some sort of tree inventory that was not included with the submission. The Shaner Road entrance landscaping should be extended across the frontage of Lot 12 so it's uniform. The tree permit process, this doesn't require township board approval, subdivisions would, but this is site condos, so it's solely to the Planning Commission. However, the tree permit is required by the board. No tree permit has been issued yet and would not be issued until after all approvals have been granted and engineering is done. So, what does that mean, tree permit? They can't touch any trees on the site until after any approvals are completed and the engineering's ready when they're ready for construction. The way this process works is that the trees, if they received approval in the current format, they'd be allowed to remove only trees to start with to install the roads and any utilities. Trees for individual home sites would be removed when they file an application for a building permit. But that after a owner moves into the house, they could remove any trees on their site unless some sort of conservation easement was granted. But no, what I'm saying is they couldn't clear cut the site. They'd only be able to remove trees to get the infrastructure installed. And they cannot clear cut the lots. Then when they come in for an individual home, let's say in lot number 1, they'd be allowed to remove trees within 10 feet of the building envelope, plus any areas where there's utilities installed. The sort of the problem with the tree ordinances means that once somebody owns a property, they can take down any trees they want. Typically, people like to keep trees on the site, but on your individual sites, if you have trees, a permit's not required to take down trees. But that just wanted to explain that process to everybody. A master deed would be required for the submission of a final site condominium application. The building department has to approve the street names. They also indicated, the fire department also indicated parking is prohibited on one side of the street. Question by the building department why an 8-foot sidewalk on Shaner when the standard is 7 feet, and questions about regulations regarding fences, pools, sheds, and decks if there were any restrictions applied as part of the approval of the master deed.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Mr. Snyder. Okay.
Mr. Chairman? Question to Mr. Nguyen.
Sure.
Mr. Nguyen, your comment on the on-street parking is prohibited on one side of the road. What's the criteria for that?
That's the fire department's criteria. I think they have to have a certain amount of open width, yes. I don't know what that minimum is, but that's a standard requirement of theirs.
So these roads are not big enough to?
No, they're standard. They're a standard public road cross-section, Mr. Wixmonsky. 28 feet, 60-foot right-of-way. That's a standard. What they're saying is they want it restricted to parking only on one side if people were to park on the street.
Okay, Mr. Snyder. Number of trees, you have not done a tree survey?
No, at this point, we have not done a detailed tree survey. And again, I want to be very clear here. First of all, the trees are the applicant's trees. Everybody sort of knows that. Second thing is the applicant knows the value of trees and wants to keep as many trees as possible on the premises because it's a good selling point. It looks good in the subdivision. It looks good for everyone. Everyone benefits for keeping as many trees as possible. And during the engineering process, it's very normal for us to move around utilities, move things out away from property lines, keep trees in at the rear yards, put storm sewer running straight out towards the street rather than along the property lines in every effort to keep as many trees on particular lots as possible. That will be, again, that same approach will be used here. Again, you're right, there are some very nice trees out there. And yes, certainly a detailed tree inventory, tree survey of all the trees is important to be able to do that. That's something that's normal course in a development of this sort. So again, it's with a situation like this where it's an R1B subdivision, all of the lots around it are R1B, we're not asking for any variances. You know, some trees are going to come down. You're going to have the tree, you're going to have the roads going, you're going to have the easements for the utilities around the roads. Of course, the sanitary sewer and the water main go right next to the roads. I believe the preference of the developer in this case is to have a public road. So it would be an actual Macomb County Road Commission road rather than a private road. I don't know if that's been completely settled, but that's their preference right now. So that's about, that's the best answer I can give you on the trees. You know, again, there are no plans to clear cut the site. But again, there's no plans to put in a 20-foot or a 30-foot buffer. Again, there were an awful lot of trees that came down when we developed Birchfield, which we were the engineers who did Birchfield. Again, it's an R1B subdivision in Shelby Township. These things, nobody likes all the trees coming down, and they're not all going to come down. But there are going to be some significant trees that do need to come down for those improvements to be installed.
Someone asked a question about the sanitary line. So you're saying you're proposing to run it along the road?
Yeah, the sanitary is right now in Shaner. We'd be bringing it up to the subdivision entrance and then along the interior road, usually about 10 feet away from the edge of the road.
Now, how about as much as you know, square footage of the house and how's potential sale prices?
I can't answer about the lot or the home size. We're not involved in the actual home builder. So I'm not a builder. I'm an engineer. So I'm not prepared to answer anything about the home simply because I don't know. Again, there are R1B lots. I think people generally know the value of an R1B lot in Shelby, and I know that these things are market driven and developers put in as quality and expensive a house as the market will accept. So.
Okay, how about the retention pond?
Yeah, and the retention pond, 4 days before this was submitted to the township, there was no retention pond on it. The retention pond is a result of the conversations that I had with Macomb County Office of Public Works, who regulates stormwater in Michigan. I don't like the retention pond. I don't want the retention pond. I don't believe it's even, if there was a way I could convince the Office of Public Works not to put in the retention pond, I would. But they were pretty firm that because this development is going in and it doesn't go into a detention pond already, that it must have one. And there aren't a lot of places to put a detention pond on this site, and that's sort of ended up on the southerly property line, mostly as an effort to buffer the development from the south. So again, we could have centralized it, say taken lot 9 or lot 8 and put the pond completely on that, but then you'd have the side yard of 8 effectively facing the rear yard of the subdivision to the south, which we didn't think was, again, that wasn't as desirable.
No, will there be an effort to screen the retention pond? Or?
Certainly, yes. And there will be no fences on the retention pond. It's with flat enough slopes that again, there's no plans for the detention pond to be fenced. And in case anyone's wondering, the outlet for that detention pond isn't to Shaner Road. It's actually to a pipe that was left for it at the back of Birchfield, which is on the common property line between proposed units 7 and 8. There are a pair of pipes there that are for that drainage. So the pond, the site needs to go to that outlet. It's not going out to Shaner Road.
Okay. There was a question about a falcon. Do you have
I know nothing about a falcon. I would have loved to seen it.
Yeah.
Sure.
There it is. Go the other way.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's bird's right there. That's why I brought the photo.
Okay. I could let the record show I've seen a falcon now.
Okay. All right. Anyone in the commission have questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
No. No.
So moved.
Moved is supported.
Yes, support. Who made the
Is there support?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now, we are a recommending body. What's it? We're actually making the decision, oh, okay. So we may approve this request, disapprove this request, or table it to evaluate the information we received further. At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Gazali.
Before I make a motion, I have a question for Mr. Nguyen I didn't ask. What is the history, and some of the residents mentioned, whether it's a concern or not, about the previous owner owning 7 acres, and it wasn't 7 acres, and now it is? Is there any shady?
What they've done is they've assembled some property and put it together to do this development.
Was each individual property always zoned R1B?
Yes.
And collectively, they're still R1B?
Yes.
And this applicant's proposal fits in with the R1B regulations?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Can I ask Mr. Snyder a question?
Sure.
Inasmuch as we didn't have the tree information, I think there might be some value in obtaining that information so we could see if any of that has some relevance in terms of what could be maintained and preserved. Because typically we don't screen single-family subdivisions from single-family subdivisions. And somebody else, you move into a parcel that has property move into a lot in a subdivision that backs up to property that you don't own and has trees on it. There's no expectation on our part that we have to maintain those. Having said that, if there's some unique trees on the site and there's a way to incorporate that, I think it's worth evaluating. Would it be, does your client have some information on the homes that they might be building in the area, that some of those questions could be answered? I know you don't have that information, but is it possible they might have that information if they're going to be building the lots?
Are you suggesting that perhaps a tabling in order for me to get more information on the lots and to perform the detailed tree survey would be appropriate?
I think since that information was missing and that's a concern, I think, I think we have an obligation to respond to that. It still might be that some of those trees are going to be removed, and I don't think it's a reasonable expectation to think that you can maintain trees on your neighbor's property indefinitely. I don't think that's reasonable. But I think in light of the fact those concerns and information is not here, I do think we have an obligation to evaluate it.
Yeah, I think obviously the tree survey is required and it will be done. So why don't we, at this point, I don't have an objection to tabling your action tonight in favor of me.
And you'll make a request of your client to see if they have some elevations on the houses they're proposing.
Yeah, I can come better prepared to
square
answer
footage.
some questions about the sort of buildings that he would be proposing, yes.
Okay. All right, motion to table.
Yeah.
Somebody.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner
I
Downey.
want to make a motion to table plans for Brompton Court condominium number 14-22 until all the tree surveys to be submitted.
Okay. Moved by Dalu, support by Bernardi. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Dalu?
Yes.
Commissioner Bernardi? Yes. Commissioner DeSico?
Yes.
Commissioner Casale?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Vire?
Yes.
Commissioner Wexmanski?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Now, Mr. Nguyen, would you automatically send
Everybody that's signed in tonight will get a notice the next time around.
If you're
We're going to get a bus, and we'll add to the list, bring everybody else.
These meetings are open to the public. Anybody's welcome to attend. But there is not another notice requirement, but everybody that attended this meeting that has their name on there will get a notice of the next time you'll just get a copy of the agenda in the mail with the agenda item highlighted. And obviously, any plans you want to look at are available in our department at any time. We're happy to spend some time with you at the counter.
Yeah, he did. He came back
Oh,
and
he
signed
did
it.
sign it, okay, good. But we don't require. Yeah.
At least he gets
Let me
this.
treat. I'm sorry? Yeah.
Let me just.
Here you go.
Because of the size of the building, the size of the houses.
Leave it at the front counter when you're done.
Yeah, we have to continue the meeting, so why don't you take that to the back counter?
Leave it.
Well, that comes with the engineering, don't it? Well, I'm just thinking if you force somebody to tell you what you're gonna build, they can always change it, right? Okay.
Dan, see some of the elevations too. Mr. Snyder suggested bringing that back to show the quality of buildings.
Okay, the next item is request number 14-23, Northwood Investments, Fernando Casasanta. This is also a public hearing. Madam Secretary, why don't you read the public notice, please?
Charter Township of Shelby, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission for the Charter Township of Shelby, Macomb County, Michigan, has received a request for approval of a single-family condominium project. Applicant, Northwood Investments, Fernando Casasanta, 13249 West Star Drive, Shelby Township, Michigan, 48315. Proposed use, Camelot Court, 6 single-family units. Location, south side of 24 Mile Road, west of Hayes Road, 14950 24 Mile Road, site plan number 14-23, Sidwell number 23-07-13-200-005. Legal description is as follows. The Planning Commission will meet on Monday, July 28, 2014 at 7 p.m. in the Shelby Municipal Building, 52700 Van Dyke, Shelby Township, Michigan, 586-726-7243 for the purpose of holding a public hearing on the site condominium application. The application for the site condominium may be examined at the Planning and Zoning Department in the municipal building Monday through Friday, from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Written comments may be submitted to the Planning Commission at the above address prior to the hearing. Oral comments will be held during the public hearing. This notice is provided pursuant to the requirements of Michigan Public Act 110 of 2006 as amended. Shelby Township Planning Commission, Jerome Moffitt, Chair, Raquel Moore, Secretary. Publication date was July 9th, 2014 in the CNG newspaper. There were 115 property owners and 2 applicants notified on July 11th, 2014.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kirk, did the publication meet all legal requirements?
Yes, it did.
Great. Ms. Moore, did we receive any correspondence regarding this?
We did. We received one piece, and it was from Ms. Braga, and she's actually stating that she's in support of this and found the applicant to be honest and very helpful.
Okay, thank you. Is the petitioner representative here? Now remember, Mr. Snyder, you only get to charge mileage once.
We'll see. Again, Pete Snyder, Urban Land Consultants, representing the applicant. This is a small piece, 3 acres, zoned R1C. Again, it's on the south side of 24 Mile Road. This site does have a little bit of history. It was brought before this body, essentially identical, I would say essentially identical, exactly identical, back in 2004, had an approved site plan for this development. We had all the engineering approvals complete, ready to build in 2005, just in time for the Great Recession to put everything on park, and it sat on park. So the applicant's ready to move forward. Again, it's the same applicant as was in 2004, and it's a good development, a little infill piece that will fit the character of the neighborhood quite nicely there. And certainly I'm available for any questions if you have them.
Okay, thank you. I got a little ahead of myself. The format for this hearing will be the same as the previous. Allow the petitioner or representative make their presentation stating the reasons for the request. Commissioners will then ask questions. I'll open the floor up to the public for any questions or comments, and then the petitioner can make concluding remarks. Mr. Snyder, question for you. The Road Commission didn't have any issue with those two lots going on to 24 Mile Road?
No, they not to my knowledge. I know that they do have issue with the bubble in the island that will need to be removed. If you look at the proposed cul-de-sac, it has a bubble, and they don't allow those anymore. Other than that, it meets their geometric requirements.
Okay. To the commission, any questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, you can sit down first. This is the only public hearing the Planning Commission will hold on this subdivision approval request. All remarks will be entered into the record for Township Board evaluation. We are well, then SLED isn't actually accurate.
Yeah, and that one, I'm sorry, we're not. And this, because it's a condominium, we're not. You're the sole body.
On this one?
On this one, yes.
Okay.
Sorry for that.
So we aren't a recommending body. The decision we make will be final. At this point, does anyone from the public wish to comment on this request? And I'll need your name and your address. And please, you may not get the cheering that the last group did, but you know.
My name is Harold Hoffman. I live at 52805 Camelot Court. I'm at the end of the cul-de-sac there, and my apologies to the petitioner. I just got in town a few moments ago, and I thought I could access through the website, but I didn't do my diligence to go to the zoning and look at, obviously there are plans there for homes. Are the elevations already done and on file there? I didn't know.
I don't believe so. No.
Okay, well then, that's my only concern. I've lived here 2 years, and Mr. Casasanta, who I personally have never met, but I live in one of his houses. There are 5 houses on the street. They were all done very, very well. And that's my only concern, is that these homes would be befitting of the character and the cost evaluation of what is already there. He used to live in the house beside of me. And if he was still living there, would he build a house like this? Translation, now that you're gone, don't cheapen it.
Okay. Well,
thank you for your time.
Yep. Does anyone else wish to comment? Going twice. Okay, back to the board. Mr. Nguyen?
Mr. Chairman, just a few minor comments. Again, Mr. Snyder's correct in the history that he gave the project. I did provide you with the background information, so you had some relevant history as well. And all the approvals were granted, and it's just a matter of timing, and everything's expired. That's why we're back with this tonight. The comments are relatively minor. One, that side entry garages are required, suggesting a separate construction road from 24 Mile Road be provided so as not to burden the people that live in that development with construction traffic. There will be a tree permit required by the board, submission of a master deed. Floodplain has to reference the current flood hazard boundaries. Street trees will be required. The same comment about from the building department regarding regulations on fences, pools, sheds, and decks. And there are comments from the Road Commission, which we will share with Mr. Snyder. So, again, I think this plan is in good enough form to move forward, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Weyer.
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
In all the times that I've seen these plans, and it's been many, many years, I have never seen a road coming off of a court in this manner. Is there any others in the township that would duplicate this, Mr. Nguyen?
I don't think so.
I've never seen anything like this. These people, the people that were here before talked about home values. These people on Camelot Court have enormous homes in here. I mean, they are really big, nice homes, well kept, and I just have never, there is no other access to this property off, the property is not wide enough for a road off 24 for. This is really, here again, I guess we come up with another question. Does anybody know what you're going to build in here?
Meaning what sorts of homes?
Yes.
Again, as
You
the
no
engineer,
doubt have been on Camelot Court, and this gentleman expressed it, I think, it was up here. Did he leave?
No, he's over here.
yeah.
But this looks like, I've just never seen anything like this before.
Mr. Chairman, could I respond to?
Yeah.
What you normally find is a dead ends, a street that dead ends where the pavement stops at the property line, which we typically call Stub Street. You don't see that here, but across that one lot, there's an easement that's been recorded to provide that access. So that they took that into account when they built the first one, that this would be extended, but you don't see the only thing missing is the pavement.
So these people who bought homes on Camelot Court were aware of the easement, no doubt?
Well, maybe not the people necessarily that bought on Camelot Court, but the person that owns that lot where the easement's going to cross that would have showed up in title work, I'm assuming. It's on the property. It's been there. But
You've never seen anything like this before?
this is different.
This was approved 10 years ago, and it just failed to develop, so it
Yes.
converted.
Yeah, and to answer, at least in some sense, yes, that was how Camelot Court was developed.
For me, personally, to support something like this, I got to see more than what's showing here.
Yeah, this may be another case where we need to see the elevation and we need to see the
Unlike the prior application, the applicant, of course, Mr. Casasante, is with this. Are you going to build the homes?
Why don't you come on up and get your name and address for the record?
Fernando Casasanta, 13249 West Star Drive. The intent here is to continue Camelot the way it is now. The homes, the look of the site. At the time we did Camelot Court, the property was not available next door, so we left the easement there, figuring that down the line we'd be able to get it. At the first homeowners in Camelot Court were all aware of this. Since then, the homes have been sold. New people are in there, which I don't know. I've moved out since then. As far as coming off the cul-de-sac and a double cul-de-sac, it looks like a double cul-de-sac and it looks odd now, but it won't look like that once we open that up, because basically what it'll be would be a dogleg cul-de-sac with an eyebrow.
Did you do Camelot Court?
Yes, I did.
It's a beautiful area. It really
Thank
is.
you.
If you did a great job with it.
Well, that was the intent, and the intent is to continue that into these 4 lots. But as far as the appearance of the cul-de-sac, the existing cul-de-sac on Camelot Court will not look like a cul-de-sac anymore. It'll look like an eyebrow, which is pretty consistent throughout the township.
Mr. Chairman, what is the zoning on this property, Mr. Wynn?
R1C.
That's quite a difference in what's in Camelot Court.
Well, I think these lots exceed the minimums as well, the ones that Mr. Snyder and Mr. Casasante are proposing.
I think the minimum is 80 feet, and these are all basically 100 feet wide, and 200 feet deep, some of them.
The lots exceed the R1C standard by a fairly substantial margin. So, I think the typical concern is the size of the lot could certainly support a larger home, and usually it's the economics usually work out that way.
I'm not sure if R1C says a minimum as far as the homes.
The zoning ordinance minimums are so low as not to even be meaningful.
Right, but
usually people build far in excess of those.
It may not be meaningful to this gentleman. However, he has the ability to do with it whatever R1C dictates.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So as long as we understand.
But the intent is also to set a minimum square footage to stay consistent with what's in there now.
You could certainly understand the concerns of...
Oh, yes, I used to live there, so.
Used to live there?
Pardon me?
You said you used to live there?
Yes.
Any other questions?
That's all I got, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of the petitioner? Okay, thank you. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Like the previous application, we may recommend approve, well, we may approve this, we may disapprove this request, or table it to evaluate it further. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Casale.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the site plan preliminary plans for Northwood Investments, site plan number 14-23. All department comments will be addressed with the submission of the final condominium application.
Support?
Support.
Moved by Casale, support by DeSico. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Casale?
Yes.
Commissioner DeSico?
Yes.
Commissioner Dalu?
Yes.
Commissioner Bernardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
No.
Commissioner Vire?
No.
Commissioner Waxmansky?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, the last item we have on our agenda is a rezoning application number 04-14 and a site plan application number 14-21 for Cooter Shelby Properties, LLC. This too is a public hearing. Madam Secretary, would you read that, please?
Charter Township of Shelby, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission for the Charter Township of Shelby, Macomb County, Michigan, has received a request for approval of the following amendment to the zoning map. Applicant, Cooter Shelby Properties, LLC, 43181 Shaner Road, Sterling Heights, Michigan, 48313. Rezoning request. R1B, one family residential to R1C with conditions. One family residential petition number 4-14. Location north side of 23 Mile Road, 300 feet west of Mound Road. Sidwell number 23-07-17-479-014. Legal description is as follows. Planning Commission will meet on Monday, July 28, 2014 at 7 p.m. in the Shelby Municipal Building, 52700 Van Dyke, Shelby Township, Michigan, 586-726-7243, for the purpose of holding a public hearing on the rezoning application. The application for rezoning, zoning ordinance text, and zoning map may be examined at the Planning and Zoning Department in the Municipal Building Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Written comments may be submitted to the Planning Commission at the above address prior to the hearing. Oral comments will be heard during the public hearing. This notice is provided pursuant to the requirements of Michigan Public Act 110 of 2006 as amended. Shelby Township Planning Commission, Jerome Moffitt, Chair, Raquel Moore, Secretary. Publication date was July 9th, 2014 in the CNG newspaper. There were 122 property owners and 2 applicants were notified on July 11th, 2014. 9 utilities were notified on July 11th, 2014.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kirk, did the publication meet all legal requirements?
Yes, it did.
Okay, great. Ms. Moore, did we receive any correspondence on this?
We did, just one piece from Mr. and Mrs. Nastasi. And basically, they are bordering this project, and they believe that this project is an excellent development plan for this property.
Okay. Format for this public hearing will be as follows. The petitioner or representative will give a presentation stating the reasons for the rezoning. The commissioners may then ask questions of the petitioner. The floor will be then open to the public for any comments or questions. And then finally, the petitioner will make concluding remarks. At this point, is the petitioner or representative here? If I could get your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Walt Cuter, and my address is 43181 Shaner. And I'm here to present our proposal to develop Wilshire Park. It's a proposed 41-unit development. It's on the north side of 23 Mile, just west of Mound Road. We've been working on this plan here for more than a year. We own the property. We've owned it for several years. In order to bring our plan to fruition here, we're seeking a rezoning from R1B to R1C with some conditions, and we're seeking a preliminary site plan approval. there's a couple different parts to this proposal, the rezoning and the site plan. And so I'd like to break it up in terms of describing the parcel, describing the area, then describing our basis for the rezoning, and then describing the site plan. So there's some things I'd like to show on the plan. What's the best way? I've got a pointer. Should I do it here?
Well, you would do it on that map.
Okay.
So, but if you're going to do that, take this with you. Yeah. It's on.
So this is Mound Road. This is 23 Mile. This is the parcel. It's vacant. It's always been vacant. There's nothing remarkable about it, really. There are 2 drains that run through it. There's a county drain that runs here, and there is a road commission drain that runs through the back. If you had a chance to look at the property, you would have noted there's a lot of tall weeds in a couple areas, and that's where those drains are. The property has a number of surrounding uses, which make it, frankly, a difficult and challenging development parcel. To the east, this is all commercial. At the corner, there's a gas station. There's a retail center here. These are older centers. 50 years plus, and they show their age. Also, this parcel is not screened to these, so there's a clear shot from this parcel to all of this. Above that is a kinder care center and then some offices. To the east of that is light manufacturing. To the south, this is the old Visteon plant, and I guess everyone's knows what that looks like right now. On the south side of our parcel, we've got 700 feet of frontage along 23, and with a lot of frontage along a major road, that presents challenges for development. On the south side of 23, we have more commercial. At the corner, this runs south along Mound Road for a half a mile or so. This is a bank. Then there are 5 lots here. They're zoned R1C, but really they're not your typical R1C lots. They're only 115 feet deep. They were developed years and years ago under old zoning provisions. One of these lots actually it's a consumer's power facility. It's not even a home. These homes, the property value here, most of them are about the assessed value is $90,000. The next several developments, these are all multiple family here. There's duplexes and apartment houses, so it's all rental. This is a commercial center here. West of our property, on the north side of 23, there's a single-family home here. And then beyond that is a large non-conforming use. This is a nursery, and it's a real active nursery. If you look at their website, their hours are published as 9 to 6 or 7 o'clock, so it's not just it's not an inactive business. It's a real active business. To the north of our property are single-family homes. These are zoned R1B. Most of this was built about 50 years ago. The value of these is roughly, according to property records, about $150,000 to $170,000 here north of us. There is no access from this site to these northern properties, so we've got an isolated site here. So with all of these uses, it creates a real challenge in terms of how do you develop this. So this property right now, according to the master plan, it shows up as low density. And in fact, while it's low density, none of the uses really affecting this parcel are low density. They're commercial, they're multifamily. It's really, if you look at a master plan, more of a mixed use parcel in terms of what affects this property. This is the zone as it's recorded right now, and you can see with all these colors, this is all R1C down here. This is all multifamily. This is commercial. This is all that manufacturing. This is the non-conforming use. These are a couple of pictures of what we have. This is looking to the north. The property's mostly it's vacant. This is that county drain that's running through it now and has for years. This is looking to the northeast. You can see the gas station and the retail, that type of thing. This is looking to the south. There's 4 houses here. And this is looking from the back of the property to the east. This is the shopping center that we look at. So as we looked at this site, we tried to decide what to do. And the master plan lays this out as low density, but we didn't see it as low density residential. We saw it supporting something in a higher density residential or possibly some other commercial or office use. It certainly, in our view, does not conform to an R1B zoning based on its location and that type of thing. Looking at the master plan, we saw that the master plan talks about the changing demographics in Shelby and the goal of creating housing that'll support those changing demographics. Basically, the number of people who live in a house today is fewer than lived in a house 20 and 30 years ago. It's about 40% less. Now you're down to about 2 people per house versus 4 people per house. The age has increased. And so the goal in the master plan is to come up with smaller houses on smaller lots. With that in mind, we look then at the zoning, and that does not support that type of development. We built many projects with smaller lots and smaller units that appeal to the market base that your master plan speaks to right now. The goal was then to come up with something that would take us to a plan where we could come up with those smaller lots. And as we look through the master plan, since there was no zoning category, we saw that there was the village, the single-family village unit that seemed to fit this area. This is a mixed-use area. There's commercial, there's retail. It's a walkable area. You've got the commercial along Mound. You've got it along Shelby Road. There's a grade school there. So it's a walkable area. And so, and the unit size, the lot size for the village single family seemed to fit where we were headed, which was something around a 60 to 60 by 120 foot lot that would support residences that we see at 1,500 to maybe 2,200 square feet. We build a mostly brick unit. And so we visited with the planning director, told them our plan, and again, he recognized and told us, well, we don't have a zoning ordinance that supports that. Then we talked about the ways that you could get there. It would be a special land use, a PUD, or conditional zoning. We analyzed all three of them, visited with the planning director, and through that conversation, concluded that we were going to pursue conditional zoning. Conditional zoning is permitted under the state law, under the Zoning Enabling Act. In the township ordinance has quite a bit of narrative that describes the process for conditional zoning. And we've used conditional zoning. It's a clean process. It benefits the municipality because you specify exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. So it gives the municipality control in many respects over what happens and how it happens. It requires that the applicant provide terms of agreement, basically a statement of conditions, together with a site plan, though the site plan isn't necessary. With our package, we have a draft copy of a recordable conditional zoning agreement. We also have the site plan, so we would envision combining all that together. What I'd like to do is just point out a couple things about our plan now. So this is our site plan, the surrounding uses. The entrance is at this location, and that's moved a couple of times now. We've actually submitted this plan. We've circulated it to several different agencies. The Road Commission has done a review of the site plan. They proposed actually that we relocate the road here, which is directly across from the road. This is Sharon Street over here. So that we had a boulevard entrance and some other provisions, but this is what they wanted, so we gave them what they wanted. This is the drain that I spoke to. That used to run through here. It runs back through here. There's a pipe back here. Starting late last summer, we put the process in motion to secure a permit from the DEQ to not only relocate this drain, but to enclose it. So that took the better part of a year, but we now have that permit in hand, which takes this drain, allows us to move it over here and enclose the drain. We also have worked with the Road Commission. There's a drain that runs back here, and we have gained permission to enclose that as a part of this whole development as well. The detention basin, there was some discussion in the review letter about the location of the detention basin. That's dictated in large part by the topography of the site, the drainage and that type of thing. It's also dictated by the relocation of the Stokes drain here. So this is really a location that it's not something we have a whole lot of control over. In terms of improving the appearance, certainly one thing we're interested in doing is removing the view of the gas station from these residences. So this, we think, since there's no screening whatsoever between these, the detention basin, and we'll do it right, will provide some of that screening and some distance. The setbacks, and these are mostly 100, they're mostly 60 by 120 or so, but really most of them are actually deeper than that. As you circulate through the site, and it's not a huge property, and so there's not a whole lot of options in terms of how you develop a site like this. There was a comment about this particular road being next to this home, and you often find roads next to homes, next to their side yards. So if you look at this road is really very similar to this road right here, which is the existing subdivision. This is the side yard of this home, which fronts on this street, and this home has the same condition, really is what we're proposing here. In addition to that, the letter that you have in your file is this homeowner, and we've supplied him with the site plan, and you have his letter that he likes this plan. As you travel back here, these lots back here in the back that border this site are actually between 12 and 13,000 square foot lots. So these are actually really generously sized lots back here. We've got landscaping that we're providing for in the front. And overall, as we see it, this plan satisfies your master plan. It offers a desirable housing option for this area. This area really, if you drive through it, it hasn't received much attention over the years. It's old. And this will be a nice development for that area. It provides a transitional use for the properties to the north. So it does what it should do. It's taking the zoning, that intense use at the corners, and it's shielding the properties to the north from that. So in summary, it's a unique piece of property. We've got all the surrounding land uses to deal with. Value of what we will bring here is greater than nearly all the surrounding properties, except for the gentleman that wrote you the letter, and he supports the property. And it conforms to the master plan. We think the area needs new development, and it'll benefit the area. And if you have any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Okay, thank you. I guess just some thoughts that I'd had, and then I'll take them in two parts. I mean, the first, your request for an R1C rezoning. I mean, I think that's reasonable. I mean, I think an R1B in that area might be a little, it may not be entirely realistic. But to look at the second part of your question, your request, and that the 60 by 120 foot lots, given that all those lots to the north of there, probably the smallest one is like 90 by 230 maybe. So they're well in excess of the square footage of in an R1B, which is usually 14,000. These are in excess of that. So really what you're proposing is our lot sizes that are half, in probably most cases, much less than half of what is in the rest of that neighborhood. And with regards to what the master plan says, there may be some smaller elements of the master plan that you can sort of craft this to, but I think the overall is that this is still a low density residential, and that's not what you're proposing. I like the fact that you're looking to do single family home in that property. I just think that you're overreaching with what you're proposing. And with that, I'll open.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Vire.
Mr. Nguyen, does this application meet the requirements for R1C zoning?
No.
Then I guess the question is, why are we even considering it? And why would you want it to be brought back instead of denying it?
Well, Mr. Chairman, can I maybe hit that? Just from a procedural standpoint, there's a couple ways you could go with this. One would be to accommodate the smaller lots. There are three options. One option would be rezone it to a multiple family category and do a special land use, which is how we handled that site on Mound Road across from Vistion. That was done as a special land use. But that required rezoning to multiple, and didn't think that was, that raises some concerns about having that as the base zoning. The other way to do it would be to do this as a planned unit development, which gives you the board has the broad authority to accept changes in standards, which, as long as they, that's the typical way those deviations are handled. The third would be a conditional zoning. I think we've only done one or two conditional zoning applications, and the question is that I've raised to Mr. Kirk is really more of a procedural one. Does the conditional zoning give us that option to do it this way? And if that's not the case, then perhaps the PUD might be the better vehicle to accommodate this.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Vire.
Did you, Mr. Nguyen, sit down with the applicant and talk about this project?
We talked about it extensively. And we talked about all those options.
And he chose to bring it in this form?
Right. And frankly, in some communities, this type of project is handled through conditional zoning.
This is not Warren, though. Nevertheless,
right.
That this equals about 4 units per acre?
Just under that, yes.
Yes, just under 4 units per acre. That's far too dense for this parcel of land, in my view. And I will never support anything that dense in that area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners have questions for the petitioner?
I just have a comment.
Okay. Commissioner Moore.
I echo Mr. Vire's comments. I do have a concern. I like the idea of developing this property. However, the lot sizes, as Mr. Vire had stated, and our chairman here, my concerns are the neighboring areas. The lot sizes are much larger, and I feel that a lot of these lots are so small looking at this development, and I'm not in favor of, I know one of your proposed elevations was a 2-bedroom, and I don't think that really fits this area. I believe a 3-bedroom would be the best fit. But that's just my comment.
Okay, thank you. Even going to, what you're proposing and the site plan as it's laid out, on the Road Commission or Department of Roads master plan is to expand 23 Mile to 5 lanes all the way from DeQuinder ultimately to, that is, it goes through New Baltimore. So you look at all the houses that are facing south, if what's that going to do? Then we're going to have those houses right on to 23 Mile. And you stated already that the properties to the east will all have no buffer, but will look right into a old and outdated and worn shopping center. And that's a concern, I think, to the township. Anyone else have any questions? Commissioner Casale. Mr. Bernardi.
Yes, Mr. Nguyen, is it true in the applicant's submission, zoned as R1B, there could be approximately 32 homes on this lot, and now he's asking you to zone as R1C, which is 41 lots. So we're talking 9 lots?
Well, I think you'd have to see a layout to make sure that that's accurate. I mean, if you just divide the area by what's allowed, you might get a number, but that number doesn't necessarily mean anything unless the site could be laid out that way. So you'd have to see how it would be designed to accommodate a standard R1B. So, I mean,
so maybe max would be 32, but zoned as R1B, if the applicant came back with a design which fits into this, then are we still in, do the fellow commissioners, are they still in opposition of developing this as a?
No, if he comes with a plan that develops the property as it's zoned, we have very little issue to that.
So maybe it's just market driven, and that's why you're proposing an R1C, and could it be developed as is?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not speaking for the applicant, but I think the goal, as I understand from talking to Mr. Cuter extensively at the counter, was to find a path that would allow this smaller single-family lot. And we have several of these projects in the community, which this lot is not unlike what we've approved elsewhere. It's a question of, is this the right fit, and is this the right vehicle to get us there? And I think, part of that is, do we like the plan? Part of it is, if we do like the plan, or what do we want to see there, how do we get there? And I'm hearing some maybe reservations about the size of those lots at that location. One thing I liked about Mr. Cuter's plan is where it abuts the single family to the north, the lot size has got a little bigger, that little bump out. I think that's a good design feature here. But I understand those. I understand the concerns. One of my biggest comments is procedurally, is this the right way to do it, or is there another vehicle that handle that? And that's more of a technical issue. And I know Mr. Kirk and I have to talk about it, and perhaps Mr. Cuter's attorney and our attorney could talk about that process, because I know other communities have interpreted the conditional zoning process a little differently, and sometimes I think they may use it as a substitute for a PUD. We typically have not done that. And that doesn't mean that it can't be done that way, but I think we've kind of relied on the PUD mechanism.
Chairman, can I offer one comment regarding?
I think Mr. Bernardi's next on, then I'll let you.
My only comment was I concur with my board members on the density at this point, and I would unable to support it.
Okay, Mr. Cuter.
The lot size, the 60 by 120, much of the entire Central Park development, those lots are 60 by 120, just as a frame of reference. So this isn't an unusual size lot. Most of Central Park, the single family on the east portion of the whole development, I don't know how many hundreds of lots are there, those are 60 by 120.
I think if you develop 300 acres, you may have some flexibility as to what types of products that you put into, but you're looking to develop a smaller piece on 23 Mile, surrounded by a long-standing community neighborhood within our community. So there's a difference.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. This is the only public hearing the Planning Commission will hold on this rezoning request. Your remarks will be entered into the record for Township Board evaluation. The Planning Commission is a recommending body. The Township Board will take into consideration these comments when making the final decision on the rezoning. At this time, anyone from the audience is welcome to come up and speak in support, against, or offer comments or have questions on this request. I just would need your name and address and have you sign in, please.
I'll sign after my comments.
That would be good.
My name is Andrew Perzanowski, reside at 5540 Althea. Been a resident in Shelby Township for 26 years. Number one, initially they tried to get a variance for multifamily. That was rejected. Now they come in with a 10-pound plan and a 5-pound box. So essentially, the property was clear-cut basically right now. So when you've seen the photos, that doesn't want to reflect what it looked like for the past 23 years. So, it's kind of perception here of what we're seeing. The lot sizes are the biggest concern. It's getting ridiculous. 60 feet wide, when all the adjacent properties, less the one south of 23, all large lots, mature trees, everything. We just want to see the developer develop it in a way that's uniform with what's there. We don't begrudge him the fact that he wants to make more money per square foot of land, but reasonably, there's limits to that. So that's our main concern. And, the setback between the homes on those lots, you're going to reach out and touch your neighbor like I grew up in Hamtramck. It's getting tight. So unless you're going to build 3 stories. So, but anyway, those are our concerns. And like I say, we're all for development, but in step with what we have right now. So that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Cindy Patterson, 5425 23 Mile Road. We live on the west side of this property in a single-family residential lot. And on 23 Mile Road, just west of Mound, the road narrows into a one-lane. And I don't know how many times we've had to pass our own house up because we've had so many people race on the rear end of our vehicle where we can't even pull into our own driveway. And we've had people who have run into our yard in accidents and run into one of our trees and even smashed one of our vehicles where that road narrows down and they're speeding through there. And when I have to go by my own home and turn around to come back, I see it highly impossible. You're going to put all these residents in this little lot. This lot really is not that big to have all these people living in there. Otherwise, they'll probably have to widen the whole road and find some way to get them in and out of there. The other thing is I really don't see any buffer zone and concern on for our side of the property. And we've been here 17 years. And I was at the meeting the last time they wanted to rezone and were turned down. And the board didn't feel that that was proper to have, this type of neighborhood or residential area like this at that time. So main concern, I really feel that there's going to be some dangerous traffic issues going on here because this road narrows right down to one lane and they speed through there. And there's big trucks and diesels and it's crazy right now. As a matter of fact, the traffic that's coming through here. So how they're going to get in through 23 would be really, interesting to see. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, my name is Irma Moeller, and I own the duplexes across the street directly from this parcel. And I, too, I'm concerned about the traffic flow because my tenants complain now about all the traffic on 23 Mile Road of them getting in and out. And with this property right across the street, it's going to be worse. And my other concern is there's only one entrance in that property. And with all the construction trucks coming in and out of that one entrance, that's a great concern of mine. And I was wondering, I always thought there had to be two entrances in a subdivision. That's not true?
No.
That's not true. I guess that's my concern is because I own three buildings on the south side and one at the corner of Sharon in 23 Mile Road. And like I say, the people complain now about the traffic. And I feel that this property should be left as is, zoned as is. Thank you.
Anyone else? Going twice? Sign in, no. Okay. Okay, thank you. Mr. Nguyen, your comments?
Chairman, I think I've already addressed the zoning issue, which I do support. I think there's some basis for a change in zoning here. Just want to offer a couple of comments, site plan related comments. One concern is the variable setbacks, which I think would be very difficult to administer, and I think more uniformity there is better. The concern about the nuisances for that single-family home, even though they've signed off that somebody else might be living there one day, and I think some consideration for some additional landscaping would be useful. I would kind of withdraw my comment about the stormwater detention. If it has to be there for engineering purposes, it has to be there. If it's going to be fenced, we'd ask for a more decorative fence to kind of blend into the landscaping. But we do need interior cross-section of the roads. And the building had a question about lots 15 and 16, and again, some more uniformity. The rest of the comments are more technical in nature that we'd address with the final submission. They're not design related.
Okay, thank you. Does the petitioner have any closing remarks?
just a couple of comments. So I'd want to, again, make the comment that a 60 by 120 lot is a good-sized lot. And while you may set a threshold for size, if you set that and there's not a market for it, then it really doesn't benefit the township. So we did come, I've owned this for 10 years, and I came here to put in originally duplexes. And they were $250,000 unit duplexes, and we did not get approval for that. We did go to a study session with the then Planning Commission, and the study group actually liked our plan. They asked us to make some modifications, but I got busy doing other things, and this sat. I've decided to bring this back. I would look at you, and I believe this is a good project for this area. I think it benefits the area. This area has received less than glowing press because of all the surrounding activity. It's older. It deserves some new development. The lady that lives just to the west of us, if you look at that map, you'll see normally there's probably at least a half a dozen cars that are stored on that site. We would certainly want to buffer ourselves from that site. And that's not the only thing that we deal with in that area. So we've consulted with Mr. Wynn for many months now and developed and refined this plan. This brings value to the township, and I would hope that you'd look at it in that light and recognize that it does fit your master plan, the housing, it'll serve a need, and I see a benefit.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Mr.
Go ahead.
Mr. Cuter, it is Cuter, is that right?
Yes, sir.
You've referred to this area on 2 occasions. It said this was a good product for this area. What did you mean by that? It's not Birmingham. Is that what you meant? That's where you live, right?
Mr. Vire?
Yes.
I believe that...
No. Mr. Cuter, I just asked you a question. Do you have an answer for my question? What do you mean by for this area?
So by that comment, what I'm suggesting is for this, where you have property, I look at things from a planning point of view. And so as I look at this area, at least in my view, it makes sense where you have intense uses of property, like commercial and retail. It's appropriate to step those uses down, Mr. Vire. And so, and the way you step those down is through uses that are less intense than what they are adjoining. So right now, this property, much of it is adjoining multifamily, rental housing, and older retail.
So that's what you meant?
So I think this is a good transitional use to this property.
I don't think there's anyone here or even in the audience that's against new development. But you slam these people who live in that area, in my view, and I don't think that's proper to come into this community and put together a project of this nature with which you've asked for to downsize from R1B to R1C, and then go even below that, and then you keep talking on 2 occasions about this area. I want you to know that I don't like it. I don't believe the people who live in that area like it, and I would ask you to refrain from doing that in the future.
You've referred to this area as neglected, depressed, and even receiving bad press. And so when you state, as Mr. Dwyer indicated, you know, I think the thinly veiled opinion that you have of this community is pretty evident. At least this area of our community is pretty relevant. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Mr. Dalu?
Motion to this.
Support.
Mr. Chairman, before the motion, I'd like to ask Mr. Wynn. I know you suggested a motion to postpone.
Yes.
For what purpose?
Well, number one, to review the process to determine if this is the right process or if another process would be more appropriate. And two, to see if we can determine some of the site plan comments I have, if the site plan can be revised to accommodate those concerns.
You're willing to work with the applicant to try and modify his plan in order to satisfy both the...
I think it's pretty clear the concern isn't so much with the process, but with the plan.
And I think there are some other comments that were raised tonight that go beyond my comments.
In my view, you've wasted your time, you've wasted the applicant's time, because nothing like this, in my view, again, would get past the Board of Trustees anyway. So it's just, it's modified too much, and I probably have said a little too much anyway, so I thank you for the chance, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
So we have a motion support to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, could I make one comment?
We're closed. You can sit down. You can talk to him after the meeting, Mr. Dwyer, if you'd like to. Our decision on this proposed use must be based on the following: the practicality of the rezoning request and the effect on the surrounding area, the owner's right to use this land, the current growth and development patterns warrant this rezoning, and is a proposed rezoning in accordance with the master plan. We may recommend approval, disapprove, or table this request to evaluate the information we received this evening. At this time, I'll entertain a motion. One twice.
Mr. Chairman, I move to deny the applicant's motion to change this property from R1B to R1C, but on the premise it does not even meet the R1C requirements.
Support.
Okay, so we have a motion by Dwyer, support by Moore. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Dwyer?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Waxmansky?
Yes.
Commissioner Bernardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Casale?
Yes.
Commissioner DeSico?
Yes.
Commissioner Dalu?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Motion is denied. That'll be forwarded on to the board. Okay, with that, planning director's report.
Nothing other to report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any business from the floor? Anyone want to say anything? Name and you get 3 minutes. Name and address, please.
My name is Jim Verkinderen. I live at 5083 Galaxy. I had written a letter to Mr. Wynn concerning a change to an addition to one of the ordinances. Didn't make this meeting, but whatever meeting it does make, I'd like to ask Mr. Wynn to give me notice so that I can be here that night. The letter that I wrote him was, Dear Mr. Wynn, I would like the City Council to add to the ordinance that covers prohibiting motor homes, trailer homes, utility trailers, and campers to add the following. No farm tractors or farm implements to be parked in driveways or in front of single-family homes and subdivisions. Thank you for your help in this matter. I have a farm tractor with a front-end loader that's been there over a year at one of my neighbor's homes down the street on Deborah. I was told by code enforcement that presently there is no ordinance that covers this as an ordinance violation. I think it's ridiculous and it needs to be changed. I don't know. I've looked at this tractor and front end loader. It hasn't moved for over a year. And I'd like for this addition to the ordinance to be considered whenever it comes out.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I move to adjourn.
Moved and support?
Support.
Moved and support, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.